The prosecution of a person who burnt a copy of the Quran uh, has led people to speculate that in Britain this is the return of blasphemy, the law of blasphemy by the back door. And the case of Hamit Coşkun, a Turkish man who was playing with fire, has revived this idea that in 2005 Parliament abolished the common law offence of blasphemy in England and Wales, and 17 years later, in the multicultural heart of London, a man stands trial not formally for blasphemy, but for an act so close in spirit and consequence to that obsolete law that people are entitled, perhaps obliged to ask, has blasphemy returned not by parliamentary consent, but by prosecutional sleight of hand? This is a case of an asylum seeker, a political prisoner in Turkey, now a defendant in Westminster Magistrates Court, for burning a Quran while denouncing radical Islam. On the 13th of February, Coşkun, a 50-year-old atheist of Kurdish and Armenian background, burned a copy of the Quran outside the Turkish consulate in Knightsbridge, and he shouted, "Islam is a religion of terrorism and the Quran is burning." These words were ugly, offensive, and inflammatory. There's no need to pretend otherwise. But the legal question is not whether he was offensive. The question is whether his conduct constituted a crime under the Public Order Act 1986 and the Crime and Disorder Act 1998, or whether prosecuting him criminalises heresy in all but name. The prosecution alleges that there was religiously aggravated disorderly behaviour, a public order offence within the hearing or sight of someone likely to be caused harassment, alarm or distress, with the aggravation being hostility towards Muslims as a religious group. The defence, led by Barrister Katie Thorne, argues that this charge, if successful, effectively reintroduces a blasphemy law for Islam, creating a protected sanctity around one faith's holy text, which the law has long ceased to provide even for Christianity. So, if we recall the case of White House versus Lemon in 1979, Dennis Lemon of Gay News was convicted of blasphemous libel for printing a homoerotic poem about Christ. This was the last successful blasphemy prosecution. Parliament repealed the offence in 2008 after centuries of awkward entanglement between the state and the Church of England, and the abolition was a celebration of pluralism and free speech, imperfect perhaps, but a milestone in our legal history. To revive blasphemy today, even indirectly, would not be a step backwards, it would be a legal resurrection, and by this time, not for Christ, but for censorship. What Coşkun did is deeply offensive to many, but that's not the legal bar. However, the terms of the law on which he's being prosecuted suggest that the legal definition is about whether or not he caused offence or whether someone felt that they were offended. As the National Secular Society and Humanists UK have rightly said, our freedom of expression is not the freedom to be agreeable. It's the right to criticise, parody, even condemn ideas and beliefs, religious ones included. Coşkun did not threaten violence. He was not inciting riots or calling for attacks. He was protesting loudly and decorously against Turkey's ruling ideology as he saw it, and against a religion that he, as an ex-prisoner, blamed for his oppression. The context matters. To frame his act solely as a religious hatred strips it of any personal and political dimension. And the Free Speech Union and others argue that this prosecution is blasphemy by the back door. If the Quran is now treated as an object whose desecration alone constitutes criminal conduct, regardless of physical harm or real incitement, then we've created a new legal sanctity, one that Christianity no longer enjoys, one that Judaism, Hinduism and atheism never possessed. Is Britain now moving from protecting believers from violence to protecting beliefs from criticism? Would the same strength of prosecution be brought if somebody were to desecrate a Torah scroll, for example? In a multicultural and plural society, such protections become legally incoherent. Which faiths are shielded and to what extent? Can satire, parody, protest, or academic criticism survive such sacred exemptions? If offence alone becomes the litmus test of illegality, then all public discourse is surely imperilled, and the voices silenced first will be those without the wealth, influence, or majority backing to shout louder. In Sweden, a Qu'ran burning protest caused outrage but was permitted under free speech law. In Pakistan or Saudi Arabia, similar acts have carried the death penalty. Where do we wish Britain to stand? Do we preserve a liberal democracy with robust legal protections, or retreat into a patchwork of censorship designed to appease rather than integrate? There's an added irony. In 2001, Keir Starmer, then a barrister, defended a man who defaced the American flag in protest. He argued and won that such symbolic acts were part of free expression in a democratic society. It's a sobering reminder that what was once defended as protest may now be redefined as hate, depending on who or what it was symbolically targeted. No decent person should rejoice in seeing holy books burnt or people insulted. But nor should decent people tolerate the slow imposition of blasphemy laws dressed in secular garb. The law must not protect sacred texts, only public peace and personal safety. If it does more than that, it becomes a priest in a judge's robe. What must protect sacred texts is education. What must protect sacred texts is a proper reintroduction, a proper rolling out of religious education as a tool to demonstrate the historical and cultural impact that the various religions have made on our country's heritage and how important that is, how that informs our literature, our art, our music. The Joshkun case is not merely about one man, one book, or one religion. It's about the fundamental right to offend, a right essential to criticism, to reform, to protest, and to pluralism. If that right is lost, now I'm saying that this is somebody who respects the Quran, who treasures religion. If that right is lost, then Britain, the Britain to which Joshkun fled, is no longer the Britain he hoped to find.